Guys, this is my video on how to install a Tippmann response trigger into a Phenom or Hurricane mechanical grip. They did not make a kit for this, so I had to work this out on my own. Things you will need, obviously, the Phenom mechanical grip, a hacksaw, a small Phillips head screwdriver, a drill and 1/4-inch drill bit. It's not necessary, but it's nice to have a Dremel. Alright, so here's your frame. Here's what the frame's going to look like when you're done. Alright, before we get too far into this, a fair warning for those who are using this as a Phenom. I installed this on my Phenom, and the response trigger worked. However, the cyclone feed no longer got enough air. Now, my intention the whole time was to turn this into magfed, a Hurricane, so that didn't bother me. But if you plan to do this with a mechanical Phenom using the cyclone feed, you're going to have to do some tinkering. I didn't go down that road because I honestly didn't care, but I'm sure it's possible. So, fair warning before we start. Alright, we have our frame here, taken apart. If you don't know how to do this, get this far, find another video. There are plenty of them out there. The Phenom is a great marker. Lots of good videos for it. What we have here are the 3D printed parts. And here's what they all do. The drill guide goes right here in your right-handed one, and that is literally a guide for a drill. That puts your hole right where you need it. Alright, so you do this, you take your drill and your drill bit, you just follow the hole, make a hole. That should be it. That's it for that part. You're done with it. Next, you've got these two parts here. These, I believe I called them pin guides in the files. What these do is they sit right here and right here. Take that off. Here and here. And that shows you where to remove some material. So right here, this little groove for the response trigger pin does not exist in the Phenom frame. You have to make it. So that's what this does, is it just tells you where to take material away. Now you can take that material away with a drill, or you could file it away, or I personally use the Dremel. That's where I said it's not necessary, but it's really nice to have. It goes a lot faster with this guy. Once you're done with these, set them aside and you're done with those parts. You're going to have to modify your response trigger. This one is already modified. I only have the one, but if you know these things, you can probably tell that this has been cut and this has been cut. So that's where a hacksaw comes in. Now to get your spacing, what you want to do is take the two little pieces, pieces in the file, wrap them here. Those go around the cylinder. Alright. Put our little tube through the hole. And that gives you your line of where you need to cut off. Or, if you want to be really obsessive about it, make sure this is correct. That's at 31.14 millimeters. You'll notice it's cut at kind of an angle. I just had to cut a little extra angle off of it because this is angled. But really, at your shortest part, we're looking at 28, call it 29 millimeters is what you want from the back to the shortest part here. And you can cut that off straight, it's fine. Your pin, you do need to cut some off the end of your pin. This thing is 31.18 millimeters. So just over 31 millimeters. You cut it off, and then I used the Dremel again to just kind of smooth out the edges here. Because the last thing you want with your finger on a trigger here is this thing moving next to it with sharp edges. You probably won't hit yourself, but just in case. And it's probably better for the trigger to have a smooth surface. So I would smooth that out. You can use a file, but that's again where a Dremel comes in handy. Once you have your pieces cut, you've got your little piece here that's got the notch cut away from it. This goes in here. When putting this back together, I put a little, it's a number 14, I believe, O-ring in here, just to kind of serve as a bumper. Because this is plastic, it's not, I assume it's not really meant to take repeated impacts from this cylinder here. And it doesn't take a lot of movement to reset the trigger on the Phenom, as you probably know. So that little bit of movement is all it takes. And that O-ring just serves to kind of help protect things a little bit. This one kind of snaps into that side. There you have it. Obviously you want your trigger in place. The reason these things look kind of funny is because I have made this to work with the that crazy CNC bent tube that they have. So you notice this, you put this in here, and it fits. It works. So if you're leaving your ASA on the bottom here, you can still use this kit. If you're putting it on the back, if you got one of your MCS conversions and you want your ASA off the back, obviously you don't need this. There's no worries. But if you want to still use that CNC bent tube, it can still work. So that's it. That's all there is. Put it back together like you normally would. Not going to show you that. You know what you're doing there. As far as the air, this is a response trigger kit off of a Tippmann 98. As far as I know, they're all pretty much the same in terms of the valve and the tubing. You might need to get a different length of tubing, depending on the kit you have. This is just the microline that's used on basically every autococker ever. It's very readily available from paintball websites, eBay, whatever. And the fat tube that comes with the response trigger comes out here, plugs into this elbow, which the valve screws into, and then I used a 90 degree fitting right here, so that when it goes into my flex valve up here, it's not so, it doesn't stick out as much. If I just put a straight tubing out, the tube would come out and be kind of crazy. This is just to give it a little lower profile. These 90 degree fittings, or any fittings for little air projects like this, your best bet is to look at dental supply websites. You've been to the dentist, they have all those tiny little air tools, the drills and like the blowers and the suckers and all that good stuff. They use a lot of these little fittings, and they're usually pretty well made. So if you find a dental supply website, you can easily find elbows, T's, junctions, whatever you need to do all your crazy little projects. Now, if you're like me and you take your stuff apart a lot for various tinkering and stuff, this mod can get a little annoying until you get used to it. It's just developing good habits, like most other things. So, put your flex valve in, and you actually have to attach this here before you put in your little air pin. So you got to attach that, have this thing dangling off, or just kind of like set there a little bit before you put that pin in. And then from there, it's putting it together just like normal. So it's just one little extra step. After you first put it on there, you'll annoy yourself a couple times by putting this pin in first and then realizing you got to pull it out and then put this in, whatever. It's just one extra step. You'll get used to it.